Hello guys, welcome to another episode on my School of Programming channel, and today we are treating beginners introduction to JavaScript part 2, where we will continue from where we stopped in part 1. So before now, the next thing we need to do is just to go to our project folder in our file system and launch our html.html file in our browser, because that was what we've been working with, and that is the file that we'll continue to work with. So I'll go to my file system now. So go to your file system. In our own case, this PC local disk users, stream. So just find where you kept your own project folder in your file system. In my own case, it is HTML project. This is the folder. Then I'm going to open it. Then this is the file that we've been working with. So I will right click and then open it in Chrome. So it's currently empty because I've already wiped all the projects that we did in our last lesson. So we are going to start afresh now here. So go to our code editor, VS Code, IDE. So then I'm going to close this. Then this is our file. You can see that it is empty. In the body section is empty. If you referenced our last lesson, you will understand what I'm talking about. Then if you click this file now, this is our JavaScript file. It is also empty. Now that's a quick reminder I want to do. I told you that when you want to print any stuff in HTML, like you want it to print on the browser and you want to write it in HTML, you write our content in tags. So the kind of tag you use will determine the kind of content it will be, because the browser is going to interpret the content of your code with the tags that you use. So for instance, if you want to write a major heading, I told you that you are going to use H1, less than sign H1, then greater than sign. Automatically VS Code is going to pop the closing tab up. Then whatever you write inside is going to show in the browser. Right now we have not written anything in between the opening and closing tags. If we go to our browser and refresh, it is going to be empty. You can see it is empty. But the moment you will write something in between, like let's say, okay, this I am learning introduction to JavaScript part 2, Control S, which is save. Go to your browser and refresh. That's where you're going to find I am learning introduction to JavaScript part 2. If we go back and delete it, let me delete it and put JS2 last alone. If you click Control S and then go to your browser and refresh, you're going to find that it is Control JS2. If you use a lesser important heading tag like H2 and you put the same JS2, it is still going to print, but it is going to be smaller because the browser is going to interpret it as a lesser important heading. So let's go to our browser and refresh. You can see that we have JS2, but it's smaller than the main heading, that is the H1 tag on. So now let's remove all of that. So this is how you print into the browser using HTML file. And I told you that instead of using HTML, we can actually use JavaScript also to manipulate or write content into our HTML page. How do you do that? I told you that for every tag that you have in HTML, you will give it a unique ID name, and the attribute you will use is ID like this, put equal sign, parenthesis will pop up, just give it a name. Okay, let me just put attach, let me put that from JS, meaning JavaScript. So now attach from JS is the identity name of this ID, right? So attach from JS is the identity name of this ID. Now go to your JavaScript. Like I told you, we have a command in JavaScript. We call it document.getElement by ID, right? So document, let me type it here. It's a JavaScript command, .getElement by ID. You put brackets, you put parentheses. You will now write the name of the identity of that tag in HTML, which is attached from JS. You will now write it inside the parentheses here. Attach from JS. So now JavaScript have been able to identify this tag, this H1 tag, right? Now if you go back to JavaScript now and put, then there is another command to end it, .inner HTML. What inner HTML means is that we are now right inside that tag. The tag that you have identified the identity, you have selected by identity, right inside it. That is the meaning. So let me just put parentheses like this, then type inside it first. Inside it, right? Put semicolon to end that statement. You have to put semicolon. Then go back to your browser and click refresh. You can see that what you have is inside it. So if you check the HTML, you are not going to still find anything there, because it is JavaScript that is writing into the tag from the JavaScript file. Now, that is number one. Number two, I told you something that when you are writing anything that is like a sentence or in JavaScript, you have to put it under quotes. But if you are writing numbers, you just have to write it alone. You can't put numbers under quotes. Now, if you write 6,700 now and click Ctrl Save, you go back to your browser and refresh, you are going to have 6,700. Now, it is not as if you cannot actually put numbers inside the quotes. But if you put numbers inside quotes and you want to run calculations with it, it's going to give you serious problems. It is going to count it as a string, like a sentence. It is going to see that 6,700 as a sentence, except you now use another JavaScript command. We call it number or sparse integer, but we are going to be using that one. We are going to be using that one in later tutorials. We can't use it now. So just follow this process as I am teaching you, because one step is going to be leading to another in your understanding. So that is that. So we have to take it out of these quotes. That is that. Now let me bring this one downward. I told you how to declare variables. I said you can declare variables in 3 ways. You know, remember I said you can use, let me put comments. You can use var to declare a variable. It has to be in small letter, var, comma. You can use let. You can use const to declare a variable. And I told you that sometimes any of them works well, but there are some certain situations whereby each of them does not fit. So you have to use one in particular. Do you understand my point? And I'll be showing you some example very shortly. So now let's declare a variable, and let's give it the name sentence. You can give it any name. You know I told you in the last lesson, give it any name. Then let's now put what we wrote in our HTML tag initially in the HTML file. Let me put parentheses like this, paste it. I am learning JavaScript PAR2. Now, if you come here to this document.getElement by ID attached from JS, that tag, and you put sentence. I told you that a variable is just like a container. You store value inside. Whatever value you store inside will make that variable, assume that content. Now, sentence here is the same thing as I am learning Introduction to JavaScript Part 2. Now, we have sentence here. If you go to your browser, you refresh, you are going to find I am learning Introduction to Part 2, JavaScript Part 2 here. If you still go to our HTML file, you are still not going to find anything, because that content is being written using JavaScript. So it is invisible to HTML file. Now go back here, remove this sentence. If you remove it, I've removed it now. Go to your browser and refresh. You are not going to find anything. But if you write this sentence directly, like this, make sure you put it inside quotes. It has to be inside the quotes. It must be inside the quotes. Can you see? Then click Ctrl S, which is saved. Go back to your browser and refresh. You can see I am learning Introduction to JavaScript Part 2. That is that. Now let's now do something very, very quickly. Let's run some calculation. Some calculation. Now, there is something we call variable redeclaration. Variable redeclaration in JavaScript and any other programming language at that. Redeclaration. Redeclaration means that you are giving a new value to an existing variable. For instance, now sentence is an existing variable. Just my point. And the value is I am learning Introduction to JavaScript Part 2. But if you change the value here, you can change the value to I'm new. I am new. Let me just put new here to coding. Put a semicolon to end the statement. Can you see? If you come back here, if you delete this, and put sentence. Initially, if you put sentence, what you are going to get in the browser, let me comment this out. Let me put a double backward slash. I've commented it, meaning that the browser can no longer read it. It has become a comment. The browser will just ignore it. That's why it turned to green. If you go back to your browser, what you are going to get is I am learning Introduction to JavaScript Part 2. But if you remove the comment and you refresh your browser, what you are going to get is I'm new to coding. I'm new to coding. Beautiful. Now, if you use, we used var to declare the variable. Now let's imagine that we use let y. Let's give it another name. Okay, let's give it sentence 2. Sentence 2 is equals to I am learning JavaScript Part 2. I will put I am learning sentence to differentiate it. I am learning introduction to sentence, right? We now put sentence 2 here instead of sentence, ordinary sentence, which is the first variable. We now put sentence 2. We now click Ctrl S, which is saved, then go to our browser and refresh. I am learning introduction to sentence part 2. Now this is let, right? Now let's now redeclare sentence 2 again. Sentence 2 equals to JS is easy to learn, right? Now we have redeclared it, meaning that we have given it a new value. It can be any value at all. It can even be numbers. I'm going to change it to numbers very soon. Then look at it, and we still have sentence 2 here. By the time you refresh your browser, you are going to find JS is easy to learn. That is for let. Using let. Let me put comment using let. Then next, now use const to redeclare a variable. Using const to declare a variable. Let's use const. It's equals to const and sentence 3. Let's give sentence 3. Sentence 3 is equals to using const to redeclare, right? Just put semicolon to end the statement. Then come here to this inner HTML, change it to 3. Go to your browser, refresh. Using const to redeclare, right? Do you understand my point? Now, let's now redeclare the sentence. Sentence 3 is equals to patience is needed to learn. So now automatically when you go to your browser, because we have redeclared sentence 3 and all we have here is sentence 3, right? We are supposed to have patience is needed to learn, right? But let's see what the browser is going to do. You can see that the browser is not showing anything. Now in this case, the browser is not declaring a variable that is declared with a constant, which means that it is not going to allow you to add a new value to it. That is the meaning. So now let's leave that for now. Do you get? Now let me now come to sentence 1. Let me change this one to sentence 1. Sentence, the ordinary sentence, which is I am learning introduction to JavaScript. Come to your browser and refresh. Where is it? Let me remove all of this. Let me comment all of this. I'll just comment everything so that it won't confuse you. Let me comment everything. Or let me just take them away, right? Let me take them away so that the code won't look too cumbersome for you. Now, sentence. Look at what it's going to show. I am here to code, right? I am here to code. Oh, I am here to code, right? Now, there is something we do in programming. You know what this our